Hey there fellow travelers, Mark here with Wolters World, and today we're in the beautiful city of Montreal. And today what we have for you are the don'ts of visiting Montreal. And you know in these videos, a lot of our don'ts are more do's, but I really want to start off with a true don't when you come here in Montreal. And that is, anytime you're going into a restaurant or you're going into a store, don't just start blaring in English. Look, this is the French-speaking part of Canada. We're in Quebec, we're in Montreal. They speak French here, so you should try to speak a little French. Now, having said that, don't worry if you don't speak French, because everyone here pretty much speaks English. When you're in Montreal, they speak English just fine, and they'll understand you just fine. But it's kind of rude just to start blaring in English, so make sure you use your bonjour, which is good day, or bonsoir, which is good evening, or merci at the end of your meal, which is thank you, or maybe a s'il vous plaît, which is please. A few words like that go a long way to ingratiate yourself with the locals when you're here. So don't just come in blaring the English. Try a little French and then switch to English, because don't worry, they'll know you don't speak French just by the first words you say, and they'll switch to English right away, okay? Now, another don't I have for you is, if you're gonna be here, you'll notice the people really love their bikes here, and you'll see bike lanes everywhere. So yeah, don't forget to rent a bike when you're here in the summer, because it's great to get around. But my real don't for the bike lanes is, don't block the bike lane, don't walk in the bike lane, don't stand in the bike lane, don't scooter in the bike lane, don't park in the bike lane, don't mess with the bike lanes, okay? Because the bikers here, don't get me wrong, people in Montreal are really nice, totally laid back. But when they get on their bikes and you're not on a bike in the bike lane, they're coming at you, okay? So just don't mess with the bike lane, okay? Now, let's move to one of these don'ts that are really a do, and that is, don't miss out on old Montreal. Because when you come here to Montreal, I mean, when you see the tourist pictures and everything, most of the time what they're showing you is old Montreal. Whether you're going to Place Jacques-Cartier, or you see the Marché Bon Secours, going to the Basilica Notre Dame, I mean, it is gorgeous, not just outside, but going inside. Yeah, you gotta pay some money to go into the church, but honestly, the Basilica Notre Dame is gorgeous inside. And if you can go when there's a performance going on, it's fantastic to go to, okay? But just wander around old Montreal, coming to the old port, it's just a really, like my favorite word, quintessential part of coming to Montreal, but it really is beautiful, okay? And when you come here, I guess I do have some specific don'ts in old Montreal. One, if you go to the Marché Bon Secours, don't think it's a marché, don't think it's a market. Think of it more as a tourist mall with tourist shops in it. So if you're looking to get the tourist maple leaf maple syrup, yeah, they got that there, or your Canadian Souvenirs, or your Montreal Souvenirs, they have that in there. So the marché part of Marché Bon Secours is more of the mall versus market kind of thing, all right? Second thing, if you're gonna be eating in Montreal and you're gonna eat in old Montreal, I gotta tell you this, don't expect cheap eating in old Montreal. You can eat all over the city really, really well, but for some reason, because it's really beautiful everywhere, I'm guessing, in old Montreal, you're gonna pay a lot more. So don't expect cheap eats and cheap stays and cheap fun when you're in old Montreal. But you gotta come here when you visit. There's museums to see, the architecture's gorgeous, it's just a wonderful place to be. And when I talk about eating, another thing I gotta say to you is don't forget to eat the local treats, but more importantly, don't feel bad if you go and eat at tourists' well-known locations to eat those famous eats, okay? Because there's really three things you have to eat when you come here to Montreal. One, you gotta get the Montreal bagels. The bagels here are fantastic. The smoked meat sandwich, you gotta get that when you're here. It is amazing, okay? And then you wanna get poutine, which is the fries with the cheese curds and gravy on top. You wanna have all those three. And there's tons of places you can get it all over town. But there's some more famous places to get it, and you're like, should I wait in those lines? And don't worry, don't feel bad if you do, because it's so worth it. So for example, if you want to get that smoked meat, yeah, you might want to go to Schwartz Deli and go wait in the line to go get it, because honestly, it really is amazing. But they have a small location, but it is so tasty and so worth it. But you can get other places as well, but you won't feel bad going there because it's so good. Maybe you want to go to get the bagels. There's a number of great bagel places around the city. One of the famous ones is Fairmont Bagel. They're well worth going to, and here's the great thing, they're open 24 hours. But there's other ones, the St. Viateur Bagel Shop, you can go there and grab that. There's plenty of places for it. So yes, don't miss the local treats when you're here, but don't feel bad if you end up at a tourist location to do it, but don't think those are the only ones to go to, okay? So something to have a heads up on. So speaking of eating, another don't I have for you is don't pass up a terrasse. you're not sure what a terrace is, a terrace, the patio, the outdoor seating in front of restaurants and bars, because in the summertime, in the fall, in the spring, when the places are open and you can be outside, it's fantastic because Montreal just has this such cool vibe. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. But when you sit out on the terrace and you're having your really good beer here, and they got good beer, another don't I have for you, don't mess around with the beer here because it's a bit stronger probably than at home. That's why tourists sometimes get a little bit too tipsy when they come here to Montreal, so be aware of that. But honestly, enjoying your time on a terrace at one of the restaurants or bars is something you gotta do when you're here. So another don't I have for you is really an important one as a tourist if you're coming here, and that is don't drive. Honestly, don't drive in Montreal. It is a headache and a hell waiting to happen for any tourist and really any local, because honestly, finding parking is such a pain that it's not worth it. Trying to decipher the parking regulations and signs and where and when you can park is also a headache. But really, the biggest headache is all the rue barrée, closed roads you have around the city, because they're constantly doing construction, whether it's a bridge, a road, a sidewalk, wherever. It gets such a headache that you might get stuck in traffic. Like the other day when I was coming in from the airport, we were literally 2 blocks from the hotel. We were in the middle of like 3 lanes, we couldn't get out, my bags were in the back, and I'm like, can I get out? He's like, no, we're in the middle of the road. It literally took us 10 minutes to go 2 blocks to the last 2 blocks to get to our hotel. Just drop it. Don't drive in the city. And what's cool is, don't drive in the city, take the public transportation instead, because the metro here goes a lot of places and runs late. The buses go over the place and they run late, and it's really helpful. And it's relatively safe public transportation too, so you don't have to deal with the driving. Just take the public transportation, okay? And I gotta tell you, another don't that kind of deals with the public transportation, if you're gonna be taking the metro, don't block the escalator. Just like in any big city, people get really upset with the tourists when they're blocking the escalators going to or from the metro. So make sure you stand on the side and let the people go by. Don't let your bag or your zip lining equipment or whatever block the escalator going to the metro, people. Please, from the locals to you, don't block the escalator to the metro. Now, moving into some more touristy things, I think another thing you need to realize is, look, don't pay in US dollars when you're here in Montreal. I know most of you say, of course not, they have Canadian dollars here. Yes, you're gonna pay in Canadian money when you're here, and you can pay in credit card most places. It's not that much of a problem. But I'll say is, a lot of people will have their US dollars, and there'll be places around here that will accept US dollars. But they'll do an exchange rate, and then they're going to charge a fee for that, or maybe an add-on additional price to change the money you're paying that currency. So I really recommend, just make sure, go to the guichet. The guichet is the ATM. Take out some Canadian cash so you have that. So if you need to pay cash, you have it. And just use your credit card otherwise to save yourself the headache. And don't use the US dollars. Also, when you get your money here, don't throw away the coins. Look, here in Canada, the coins are worth something. You get a loonie, that's a $1 coin. You get a toonie, that's a $2 coin, okay? So are you gonna take $2, just throw it in the garbage? Of course not. So don't just throw your coins away when you're here. Now, one of those don'ts that's really a do you have for here in Montreal is, don't think Montreal is just old Montreal, Vieux Montreal. This is a city of neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods are fantastic. Going to Plateau Montreal, or just Plateau, that's my favorite place to go out and eat and drink, because you have so many great options when you're out there. Maybe you want to go to Little Italy and you want to go to the Jean Talon market. It's out there. You can do that. You can explore different parts. Go up the Montreal Mountain Hill when you're here. The park that's there, you can go up on there. You got Chinatown, like I said, Little Italy. You have all these different parts of the city you can go and explore. So don't just stay in old Montreal. Go out and explore. Use that public transportation, or use your 2 feet, because the city is actually really walkable. So if the neighborhoods and the city life aren't really for you, I got another don't for you. Don't pass up the green spaces here in Montreal. Yes, there's Montreal, the park I was talking about in the center of the city you can go to, but there's other parks around the town. I was filming at La Fontaine Park the other day. You can go over to the islands and explore and do hiking, and there's museums all over the place. There's so much outdoor stuff to do. Bike pass, hiking pass, walking pass. You really can do a lot of stuff outdoors. I mean, have you not noticed the zip liners going by behind me? And if you want, you can go to some of the islands around here. I mean, you can go to the island literally right across from here. You can take a ferry over to the Parc Jean Drapeau, and over there there's museums, there's paths you can go to. I mean, you can take the ferry, or the metro goes over there. You got a lot of options when you're here. You want some more, flora stuff? The botanical gardens, the Jardin Botanique, is beautiful here in Montreal. To see all the different flora that's on offer there, it's well worth checking out. But one thing I will tell you, if you want to enjoy the green spaces and you really want to enjoy Montreal, I gotta tell you this, don't come in the winter. Like seriously, don't come in the winter. January, February, cold, dark, cold, snowy, cold, wet, cold with some more cold. Look, it's just not an enjoyable place. The city's great, don't get me wrong. It's what we're visiting, but yeah, you don't want to come here in the winter, and the locals will tell you, look, our winters suck. I mean, if you do come in the winter, make sure you use the underground city kind of stuff, but connects the buildings underground, like the kind of shops under there, to kind of keep yourself out of the elements, because it can get dangerous for tourists that don't know how to dress and acclimatize themselves to those cold winters. Now, another thing that's really helpful with those terraces, you know, the outdoor patios, but really any time of the year, is don't forget to look for Sanka Set. It'll be 5 to 7. 5 à 7 is what it looks like, Sanka Set. That means happy hour. If you see a Sanka Set, that means you're probably gonna get a deal on some drinks and some deals on some food, and it's a good time when people from Montreal go out and socialize, so it's a great way for you to meet people. So if you're moving to Montreal, that's a good chance to meet the locals, or if you're a tourist here, wanted to meet some of the locals, that's another thing as well, so don't pass up those Sanka Set happy hour deals. And if you're looking for places to have drinks, one thing I gotta tell you, don't expect to see a lot of locals, or at least non-student locals and non-tourists on Rue Crescent, or Crescent Street. Crescent Street is more of a college bar, kind of so where the college students go out and the tourists go out. So if you want to hang out with other tourists and college students, that's the place to go. But there's so many bars and restaurants in these neighborhoods around the city. Go explore there and you'll meet people and you'll meet locals. You have a good time and a good brew, I would say. So as we are a travel channel, I think it is really important we actually mention some of the really nice things to see in a cultural sense. And I gotta tell you, don't miss out on the museums when you're here in Montreal. You've got the Fine Arts Museum or the Beaux-Arts Museum, you've got the Contemporary Arts Museum, you got the Red Path Museum if you like more like natural history things going on. I mean, you got the Museum of History, or Archaeology and History in Old Montreal. There's a lot of museums and galleries around town that you can go and enjoy to kind of improve your cultural standing. And honestly, the Montreal Science Center is really cool to check out too. So you've got options if you're looking for something to do on those cold days if you're here in the winter, or a rainy day other times of the year. Or if you're tired of the beautiful outdoor and wonderful food, go get yourself some culture too. Now, as a tourist, I do want to let you know, as a souvenir buyer, I want to tell you this. Don't buy any souvenir maple syrup when you're here, because the tourist maple syrup, whether you're going on the zip line or you're going anywhere, the tourist maple syrup that they sell in the tourist shops are always overpriced. I mean, they're gonna be fine, but it's overpriced. Like, why should you pay 16 euros because the maple syrup is in a maple leaf, when you can pay 6 euros for like literally 3 or 4 times the amount of syrup at the local store and take it home, okay? So that's one don't I have for you. And then another don't I have for you is, don't really bring up Quebec independence. I know I'm a kid of the 90s, and I remember when there was the independence movement and the separation of Quebec from Canada movement that was out there. And I really would say is, don't even talk about it. Don't bring it up, because either people don't really care about it or they're super passionate about it. And as a tourist, you might not know. So it's kind of best to avoid that topic, okay? So, what are some other don'ts that you have for tourists when they come here to Montreal? Please let us know in the comments section below so we can help out. And if you want to know more don'ts about Canada in general, check out our video on the don'ts of Canada to help you have a better time when you're here in beautiful Canada. And I'll say au revoir from here in Montreal.